I'm going to edit this quite a bit. This is going to sound great. We're all going to sound real smart. Don't worry.
Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie? Did you ever see that movie?
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? With me today, as always, is my handsome co-host, Des.
Good evening.
And our very special guest, a writer and podcaster in her own right, our good friend, Michelle.
Hey, I'd buy this podcast for $1.
You'd be the only one.
Today, we will be reviewing 1987 science fiction action film, Robocop, starring Peter Weller and Nancy Allen. It was directed by Paul Verhoeven, and the screenplay was written by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner. As always, today's podcast will be full of spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to be spoiled, go watch it and come back to listen. First, let's take a listen to the trailer.
All Detroit has a cancer. The cancer is crime.
We need a self-sufficient law enforcement robot.
How long will it take?
We can go to prototype within 90 days.
Where are you from?
Metro South.
Welcome to hell.
All units, Sector 9.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
You're gonna be a bad mother. Half man.
This guy is really good.
Half machine.
Robocop. What is he?
He's a cyborg, you idiot.
All hero.
What are your prime directives?
Protect the innocent. Let the woman go, or there will be trouble. Uphold the law. You are under arrest.
What is this shit?
Justice. Gets an upgrade.
Looking for me? Your move, creep.
Robocop.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
All right. Oh, welcome back to the podcast. Des, would you like to start us off with a quick synopsis?
I would love to give you a synopsis, and here it is. In the near future, Detroit is on the verge of collapse due to unchecked crime. Family man and honest cop Alex Murphy gets transferred to the worst precinct in town and finds a new partner in tough Ann Lewis. On their first day together, they engage in a highway shootout with a gang of criminals. Murphy and Lewis trail those criminals to a steel mill, but they become separated and Murphy is captured. The criminals torture Murphy, and crime boss Bodecker personally shoots him through the head. Lewis is too late to help and finds Murphy dead. Meanwhile, Detroit mega corporation OCP enters into a contract with the city to run the police force, effectively privatizing it. Recognizing that human law enforcers are insufficient to stop crime, OCP creates a cyborg Robocop program. As Officer Murphy is the most recent cop to die, he volunteers to be the prototype, and his body is joined with armor and artificial intelligence. All of this infuriates corrupt OCP executive Dick Jones, whose own crime-stopping program was axed in favor of the Robocop.
So, funny story to get us going. I used the talk into the remote thing to find Robocop when I was looking for it to do the review. And when it came up, it said it had a Rotten Tomatoes score of 49%. And I was like, how is that possible? Like, Robocop got a 49%? And I was like, I think something's wrong here. And it took me a minute. It was the 2014 remake, not the original, not the 1987. Then the original has a 91% reviewer and an 84% viewer. So just a heads up, this review is for the original from 1987, not the crappy remake.
I don't know if I ever saw the remake, honestly.
I didn't
Don't.
either.
Okay.
It will destroy your childhood and everything good about it.
So let me ask you guys, and Michelle in particular here, is this a drama, action, police movie, or is this a super realistic, grindhouse horror movie?
Okay. Well, at first glance, I wouldn't say it's a grindhouse horror movie. However, there are a couple scenes that make you go, "Whoa, I think I just stumbled into another genre."
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
But like it has so many layers that you're like, this is a legit movie that has a lot to say about society,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Mhm.
And it also is a crazy action film. It is a sci-fi film. Like, it is amazing. The writing is good.
Mm.
I mean, it's you would go Robocop, like, what the heck is that crap? Like,
Yeah.
but it just listening to it, you're like, this is gonna be a B movie or some crap. But
Oh,
it's so amazing. I
and,
just yeah.
and 28 deaths in this movie. 28 graphic, horrifying deaths.
It
I have
doesn't
favorites.
feel like that many.
Well, it is. It's 28.
I'm sure we're going to talk about each other's favorite deaths maybe
Oh yeah.
later.
Yeah, we might have to. That might have to be a thing we start doing for each movie. What was your favorite death?
I'm down.
All right, shall we get into the scenes?
Let's do it.
All right. So the movie starts us out with a fake news report. It introduces the kind of world this movie's set in. It's in Detroit. There's discussion of cops that have been killed. You hear the names of the different cops that have been killed already. And then you also hear the name Omni Consumer Products, OCP. And you meet their senior president, Richard Jones, for the first time. They are a corporation that's funding and running the police departments. Also, you're introduced to one of our bad guys, Clarence Bottinger, played by Kurtwood Smith of that 70s show fame. During the broadcast, as a newscaster explains that one of the injured policemen was able to escape and identified him as being involved. So he's now sought in connection to the deaths of 31 police officers. There's also a really hilarious fake commercial for an artificial heart during the broadcast. And
Yeah, by Yamaha.
Yeah, by Yamaha. And Lisa Gibbons, who goes on to become a real, kind of entertainment newscaster, makes an appearance here early in her career.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So interesting way to start off a movie. It's kind of like a fake newscast. Michelle, what are you feeling about the setup? Is it a good setup? Does it let you know what's going on in this world already?
I think that it's super, super effective because, it's not even like an info dump. It's a really cool way to let the audience know that this is not present day. This is not going to be anything that you're going to see in everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And it also does it really cleverly. Like, you can tell that the world is somewhat dystopian. That this is kind of a crappy version, although Detroit, setting in Detroit, nothing against anybody living in Detroit, but
Detroit's got its troubles.
Now. Yeah, it's a little rough now. So it's an interesting choice that they put it in Detroit. For a cop movie, I think that's actually pretty cool.
All right. And Des, anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, we find ourselves back in Detroit after last week, and got a little different vibe in this movie from Beverly Hills Cop. But once again, Detroit is looking pretty rough around the edges and pretty violent. And it's funny, Michelle, that you actually said about you didn't think it was a heavy information dump in the beginning during the news broadcast. And one of my questions was, they give you the plot basically in that little 3-second news clip where, we're going to find out that, OCP is taking over the police. Basically, they don't, the police union doesn't trust OCP. And I didn't feel like it was an overload on the information dump, but they definitely set up the plot, like you said, in a really smart, quick way to kind of let you know what we're getting into.
Yeah, and on top of it, it definitely sets up the expectation that it's gonna be a shit show.
Yeah.
Like, for lack of a better, you're like, oh, privatize the police,
Yes.
by a greedy corporation. Yeah,
Was there any foreshadowing in your mind between Dick Jones and the mob boss, Clarence?
It's, if you think about corporations being corrupt and all this kind of stuff, you might think that. But like, at the same time, I don't think it was 100% predictable.
They both felt like bad guys on the first introduction to me anyway. I didn't feel like Dick Jones was a good guy from his 3-second clip.
I mean, he's Dick,
He is Dick.
He's Dick.
Yeah, I also felt like it sets you up for here's the news. It's terrible. It's horrible. Here's a funny commercial. And now back to death. Like, it sets you up for the fact that this movie has a ton of really heavy stuff happening, but then they tell you a joke.
Yeah, and on that note, the people that made RoboCop also were involved in another favorite of mine, Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers has the same kind of thing. You know, it's set in the future with a corrupt situation, military also involved, some kind of, law enforcement situation. And they have that same thing where they put these, commercials in it to sort of like play up the satire on it, the dark satire of it a little bit. So it's kind of a cool technique, I think,
Yeah, ultra violent too, both of them.
Yeah, things exploding horribly. But like gloriously at the same time.
And the commercials too, like you said, that Lynn said, the fingerprint is like it's so present there.
Next, we find ourselves in an actual police station. It's a sharp contrast to the glass-walled office that OCP president was sitting in before. It's loud, it's crowded, it's dirty, it's chaotic. Alex Murphy, played by Peter Weller, enters and introduces himself to Sergeant Reed, played by Robert Doki. He's transferring in from another precinct. This is his first day on the job. It's clear that where he's coming from was probably a little bit more peaceful, and he looks a little out of place, but he's told to suit up and get ready to go out and patrol. The locker room is full of other cops complaining about the job, and they're threatening to strike. This is the first time we hear about them talking about striking. Actually, the cops talking about it, even though there was a little nugget of it in the newscast. Reed appears and removes one of the nameplates from a locker. This is the guy who had fingered Bodinger. He's now dead. And he tells them all there's going to be a funeral tomorrow. He expects people to be there, and he doesn't want to hear anything else about a strike. And I found this an interesting thing. There's the juxtaposition of removing his nameplate, and then within like 3 minutes later, Murphy shuts his locker door and they show a close-up of his nameplate. And it was like, that's foreshadowing.
Yeah. Because I think that obviously you guys know the cop that died. I think that he was considered the first prospect to be the Robocop, but he died.
Oh, that I didn't know. I did not know that.
I didn't know that. I just was kind of putting that together because at one point later in the movie, one of the guys will say to the younger OCP guy, shame about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, the cop. And he knew about that cop that died. And he said, shame is in you just lost your candidate.
Oh, good one there. I totally was just glossing over some of the names in that, but that makes a lot of sense. They're like, well, they're waiting. And then now that you say that, makes me wonder, okay, were they not able to get his body in time? Were they, like, what happened that failed? Like, I'm curious now. But anyway, that's later on. I'm sure we're going to discuss that part.
I also found it really interesting that men and women are in the same locker room. Like, there's a woman just putting on body armor, like, half naked right next to all the dudes. And I was like, okay. Like,
I love that though, because like you get a real sense of fraternity from these cops. Like they really all are a family. They don't care where you come from, who you are, whatever. Like, and so you talk about him having his first day on the job. Let's discuss that shirt.
Oh yeah.
That shirt that he wore. So like if that doesn't tell you he's coming from like a nicer place, maybe like a party, he's wearing like a Hawaiian shirt looking thing.
Yeah.
Totally like top of 80s fashion.
It's definitely Chess King.
Yeah.
So Michelle, I think, and now I might be mistaking this for another movie, but if I'm not mistaken, they did this locker room deal in Starship Troopers as well, where it was a co-ed shower.
Yes,
right.
You are 100% right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that the director, they called him on his decision to do this, and they're forcing the actors to do this, and he said, you know what, I have no problem with it. I would do it. And he got naked for the shooting of that, and was naked in front of the cast while they shot that scene.
Oh, that's great. But you know what the thing is there was no sexualization. Right. No. So I think that people being ashamed of just being naked and having they weren't even looking at the women, and the women weren't looking at the men like weirdly. It was just, it just was, right?
100%.
So I really appreciate that because again, military, same, right? You probably aren't supposed to be thinking that in Starship Troopers the same. So I like that detail a lot.
And another comparison between the two movies that I hadn't put together till you said that. So it's really cool. Get the feeling from this police station scene that Detroit's maybe on the edge of like losing losing control, and maybe it's starting to become a futuristically lawless city. So I kind of got that vibe. I thought that was cool.
Things are falling apart. It's
Yeah.
clear that things are falling apart, that they're trying to protect people, but it's almost like it's coming at them so fast and so hard they can't stop it.
Yeah, and then later on we're gonna have, I think maybe the next scene or so, when we see the boardroom scene with the OCP fellows, and the old man, as they call him, is like, Detroit has a cancer, and that cancer is crime. I think that's what he says.
He does.
You totally like, it sets it up again. You're like, this is great. It's so succinct the way they write everything. You're not guessing, which I think is really good.
Right.
Yes. Agreed. And also we can't gloss over the fact that Lewis kicks the shit out of the perp they're bringing in that was three guys couldn't handle, which I love.
That's where I was going next.
Okay. She's a badass.
She is a badass in this.
Okay, so here we have Ann Lewis, who is played by Nancy Allen. She's in that precinct lobby roughing up the suspect she just brought in because he's resisting arrest. So she decides to take it out on his face. So this is where Lewis finds out that her new partner is going to be Murphy. When they're heading out on patrol, Lewis says she'll drive until he knows the neighborhood, and Murphy's not having any of that. He jumps behind the wheel, peels out, and bottoms out on his way up the ramp.
Yes, which will come back in a later scene.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, I love that too, because they gave him so many like personal things,
and in a quick time too.
Yeah, and then they show it later, and you're like, oh,
there's still a little Murphy.
Yeah, which was kind of cool.
So next we're going to a meeting at OCP. They're in the big boardroom, and there's a lot of aggressive corporate nonsense happening. They're about to unveil the plans for OCP's Delta City. So basically what they want to do is they want to raise old Detroit and build this gorgeous new city on top of where old Detroit is. But that means that you have to take care of all the crime and get all the non-desirables out of old Detroit. And he's also considering the fact that they're going to send 2 million workers into old Detroit to build Delta City. And they can't have all this crime happening in that time. So he's like, the community's suffering, law enforcement suffering, which is true. That's actually not wrong. That is a valid point. The community is suffering, but you're not going to make it better by forcing them out of their homes and building Delta City. But that's neither here nor there at the moment. So Dick Jones decides that he's going to give something back to the community, and he's introducing to them the Ed 209, which is an automated police officer robot. And what does ED stand for? Ed, I don't know.
I don't know what it stands for.
It
stands for back the fuck up.
Oh,
it does. It's always 20 seconds to comply too.
So that's enforcement droid. That's what it is. I knew it stood for something.
Oh, all right.
He's an enforcement droid.
He's scary.
He is
friggin' scary. I think when I first saw this movie, I was like, Jesus! Like, he really, like, it's almost like when you watch Terminator and they really made, they made the Terminator really scary. So, like, you really get this, who the bad guy is. Let's put it that way. One of the bad guys is
So, basically, Dick Jones wants to do a simulation to show off the Ed 209. And tells one of the execs to grab a gun and threaten the Ed 209. And as you can guess, this is not really going to go well, because even though he complies, the Ed 209 malfunctions. And this is like the first really brutal kill that we see in the movie. And the Ed 209 just unloads with an automatic, what is it, like a machine gun rifle type thing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And just basically tears the guy apart.
Let's not jump across though real quick, because I want to hear everybody's thoughts. So we get to see Ed 209 for the first time, and it's got some stop motion that's a little janky, but I think the stop motion almost added to the drama of this robot. Like, this thing, the minute I see it, I'm feeling anxiety. I'm like, this thing is badass. This thing is dangerous. It's not properly tested. It's heavily armed.
Yeah.
Michelle, what do you think?
It's got too many guns for arms. I mean, what the heck, mustard. And the voice on this thing, okay? Like they don't stop there. They don't stop with the look of it.
No.
It's that voice. It's just like, oh crap, you
Yeah.
know? And it makes me laugh a little bit because when he's holding the gun and Dick is like pointed at Ed 209, and you're like, and he's like, ha ha, because he's thinking it's just gonna be some fun little exercise. I feel bad for that dude instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know the guy's name, but instantly I'm like, oh crap. Like
Yeah.
in there the little control panel that they're trying to like stop him with is just so funny, and they're like opening it up and like
Yeah, you had 20 seconds to figure this out, and they really build this kill up, the drama, and it's just I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it. This is a freaking great scene, and it's ultra violent.
Mr. Kinney, use your gun in a threatening manner. Pointed at Ed 209.
Yes, sir. Please put down your weapon. You have 20 seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kinney.
You now have 15 seconds to comply. You are in direct violation of Penal Code 113, Section 9. You now have 5 seconds to comply. 4, 3, 2, 1. I am now authorized to use physical force.
So wait, on that, like, what do you guys think? Okay, because the thing that I notice a lot in this scene is that they're just like pushing this poor dude because nobody wants to be near him, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I was thinking to myself, like, would I push this poor dude? Like, what would I do in this situation? Like, I don't know. Would I dive under that freaking boardroom table?
I would stand right behind Ed 209, of course.
Hey, that's a good idea. But if you were the guy, like, there was no way he could have gotten away with that, right? I think there's no way he could have got away from that.
No,
I mean, how fast
dead.
can you run from a gun? I mean,
Yeah.
No, by the time they figured out there was a problem, he had about 4 seconds left. It was over.
Yeah.
And let me ask you guys. So another thing that I noticed about this movie in general, until maybe the last couple of kills, like in the final scenes at the plant again. Like I've watched movies like Hostel and these like, ultra gore movies recently. And a lot of the times, even with modern day movie making, I feel like the gore just looks kind of cheap and fake. I feel like they got the gore right in this, especially for like how long ago it was made.
Dude, they did, like, when he shot the guy up, okay, in the very first violent scene here, when Ed unloads his Gatling gun arms, and I mean, it was, you weren't like, this looks like a B movie or anything. Like, the blood was great. The explosions were good on the blood popping out. And I'm like, they did a good job. And so, like, the rest of the kills too, all of them super realistic and good. Like,
and we're gonna get to one that is like nightmare fuel. Like it's and it's funny because a lot of times when you leave the camera on some of this gore too long, it like loses its weight. And in this case, and we're not going to get into it now, but no, it didn't. Okay.
No, I'm already laughing because I know probably what we're going to talk about. But yeah, let's move on.
So just quickly before we move on, I will say that Morton brings up the Robocop plan to the head of OCP because OCP's head is like saying to Dick, I'm very, very disappointed in your son, or whatever he says to him.
Yeah, so, it's a glitch. And he says it's a glitch.
Yeah, it's a glitch. And a dead dude is a glitch. So Morton kind of weaselies his way in there, and he says, I've got this idea for Robocop. And so this is how the Robocop thing starts actually going into motion, that he's got the green light now. He's got the old man behind him, and Dick Jones is in the doghouse. So...
And it
Yeah.
sets up the animosity between Dick and Morton as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, which is
Dick and
great.
Bob. Dick and Bob. Because that's
Which-
their names.
Dick and Bob.
That's their names. So,
It
yeah.
is. It is their names.
Let's not gloss over that they were asking for a paramedic.
Oh, that's right. Poor guy. You're right.
Dude was
man.
dead after the first shot. They're like, get a paramedic.
How about a doggy bag?
Oh my Lord. All right, guys. So now Murphy and Lewis are having a cup of coffee, and Lewis remarks on Murphy's fancy twirling of his gun. You know, he's doing the old thing. He claims it's because his kid thinks it's cool. TJ Laser does it too, which I think is what is the Shatner? TJ
Hooker.
TJ Hooker. So I think it was a little callback to TJ Hooker. But with a little more digging from Lewis. Well, digging is saying politely. Lewis just gives him the old hairy eyeball. He says, yeah, I really actually think it's cool too. So then they get a call to respond to a crime. They take off. Clarence Bodiger and his crew have stolen a bunch of money, and they're making a getaway in a box van. Lewis and Murphy catch up to them, and a shootout ensues. Clarence throws one of his gang out the back onto the van onto the cops, but they continue to chase them. They end up in a rundown factory and split up in search of the suspects. Lewis gets knocked out by a bad guy named Joe, and Murphy finds two of his suspects. Now, here is where you kind of like start to get some of the personality of the bad guys, you know, as opposed to just being quote unquote villains or bad guys. You actually are starting to get a little personality. You get to see for the first time that silly, I'd buy that for $1 on the TV, and the guys think it's funny. They're all laughing, and you get to meet Emil. And this is when Murphy gets to give his line, dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Let's take a listen to that.
Yeah, let's listen to that one.
Go ahead and do it. Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
So, Dylan, it was funny. You said that you were starting to get a feel for the gang, and you know, and I'm gonna say that throughout this entire movie, and this goes for the good guys, the bad guys, the neutral characters, everybody, there is a huge disregard for human life. And this goes from like the doctors, you know, lose the arm. It goes for the shootout in the van, the guy gets shot in the leg, screw him, throw him on the fucking car. Dick Jones witnessing his coworker being brutally gunned down by Ed 209 and referring to it as a glitch. I mean, nobody gives a shit about anybody in this movie.
No, true.
You get the good juxtaposition with the heroes, though, which is basically Murphy and Lewis.
Yes.
And I guess, what is he, the sergeant, the captain?
Oh, Reed.
The precinct, Reed, yeah. So they really set up the heroes, like, really well. Like,
Yes.
you could be like, all right. And I think, like, you're talking about this characterization, that's when you first, like, see Clarence and how much he's willing to do to just do his stuff, because he's, can you fly, Bobby? You know?
Great.
And he freaking throws his dude. His name was Bobby, I think.
I think you're right.
Bobby.
No, that's it. That's it. Can you fly, Bobby?
And oh, Clarence. And, you know, of course, the other guys are laughing about it, too. So they don't even care about their own buddy, right? It's just one of those, like, you get this sense that they're just all together for themselves and whatever, right? They don't care about anybody in their little gang, shall we say.
Yeah. And Verhoeven, he goes out of his way to make every single gunshot ultra gory. Like, even the shot in the thigh, it's like, oh, you know,
Yes.
You know, it looks painful. There's meat hanging out. I mean, it's like, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, we're coming up, I think, now that they are chasing these guys, so their little quote unquote hideout. I guess we're coming up on like one of the most intense scenes in this entire film.
Yes.
Lewis is a good cop too, because you notice that when Clarence busts the back door open of the van, at first, when he's gonna like shoot up the car, she's not there. She's pulled up alongside the passenger side. She's keen to that. And I think Clarence is a little surprised that Lewis is as savvy a cop as she is.
I think they all are, because they're like, they're just expecting him to be there waiting to get shot, you know?
Yep. And they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, as advertised, the most brutal scene probably in the entire movie is coming up when Murphy attempts to arrest Emil. He gets ambushed, and the rest of the gang surrounds him. And This is a really, really, really hard scene to watch. He gets his hand shot off. He gets his arm shot off. They fill him full of so much lead. They're laughing. They're teasing him. And finally, they shoot him in the head. And as far as we can tell as a viewer, he's dead.
Right. Well, before that happens, though, they go into the warehouse. Let me ask you guys, is this a mistake for them to split up right in the beginning? I mean, there's only two of them.
Yeah.
Yes, and they were calling for backup, and they said 20 minutes out for backup. And I actually think Lewis has some guilt because he says, call it, Lewis. Like, are we going in or are we waiting? And she said, let's go.
Yeah.
And maybe if they had waited, it wouldn't have happened.
And maybe if they had stuck together instead of going in separately, they could have, had each other's backs a little tighter. And I was also a little disappointed that Lewis, because the way they set her up, she's a savvy cop. And I was a little disappointed that she looked down. You guys?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, about her as a character. They've also established that she is a little bit of a wild card, a little bit of a cannon. Yeah. Because she's beating up that dude in the beginning. Like, why she even have to do that? I don't know, right? She goes above and beyond, I think. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a little bit of that bravado. Maybe you can read into it as, hey, I'm a woman on the force. I'm trying to hold my own here. You could think that. But like you mentioned, Delyn, that there was some guilt. And you would think that, but she does not actually, at least I didn't see it. She doesn't actually let on that she's guilty about it through the rest of the film. She helps them, right? But I don't think that she feels bad. She never has a thought like, oh crap, I should have called for backup.
Right. But if she doesn't look down at the guy's fly.
Yes.
Does this thing go down like that? I mean, she's now, been taken out of the game because she looked.
Yeah, I thought that was out of character.
I did too. I don't think she would have looked. That's what I was saying. I do not think she would have looked.
Also, that she was snapping her gum, and like, are you going to snap your gum and let them know you're there? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if she would do that.
No, I like that. I thought that she was saying, well, cuz, I got you. Turn around, standing here, snapping my gum.
She did snap it when she was already ready with the gun on it.
Yes,
true.
Yes,
true.
100%.
But yeah, the looking down at the fly was the worst. I'm like, what? Come on.
She wouldn't have done it. She's not that kind of, she's a hard ass cop. And I think there would have been a better chance of Murphy looking down than Lewis looking down with that shirt. Okay.
Poor Murphy.
Yeah, I think deep down Murphy wanted to look down. So yeah, I had a problem with that, and but that was no big deal. But yeah, I had a little problem with that. But it was the '80s, and I think they like to say that women can't be strong police officers that won't look down, or whatever they were trying to say.
Yes. But you know what? Overall, they did a good job handling the genders, though. I thought.
Agreed.
For the most part, I really thought that they were pretty, friendly when it came to feminism.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm like, dang, I think ahead of its time. They wasn't, except for I'd buy that for $1. Which let's talk about that now. So we've seen it already, and I want to know if you guys think that when that show comes on, it almost signals something is gonna happen, because when we see that show, something always happens after.
Yes,
and I wonder if it's almost like a way of the directors are saying, hey guys, like, pay attention to this scene coming up or something. I don't know. Yeah, just an idea. But like, they keep that uber crazy like misogyny in that little show in the TV.
It's supposedly a direct nod to Benny Hill.
Yes.
Which was very much like that. So
I saw a couple. I mean, I saw I saw more misogynist than I think you guys did. Like I said, first of all, with the look down scene with Lewis, which I thought disrespected that character a little bit. Also, leave now, whores. I mean, there was some
bitches leave.
Yeah, whatever it was. It was like there was some backhanded, comments made at women in this movie. Let's not gloss over it.
That was Clarence, though.
Yes. It was
a total douche.
Totally.
So you're like, okay, but not even Bob, not even the other characters did that. Honestly, it was like mostly him. Because wait a minute, this horror scene. We'll probably talk about the horror scene.
Yes, we will.
We're jumping ahead again, but yeah,
we are.
But guys, give me your thoughts on the actual death scene.
Okay, Michelle, go ahead, because I had
Okay, all
things to
right.
say.
Oh yeah. We both do. The cool thing about it is like I actually got to watch the behind the scenes for it.
Hmm.
So they talked about how they filmed that scene, and uh, we talk about it being ahead of its time a little bit with some of the effects. That was, I think, one of those things where you're like, man, they did a really great job with that because they did swap him out for like an animatronic
Wow.
um, in that scene, and they do it so well. The way they shoot it, you don't know that it's not really him.
Right.
Mm-mm.
And I was like, "Dang!" And so again, the well, the gore, award-winning gore. If there was an Oscar for gore,
Yeah.
this should have it.
Yes.
Um, and man, though, like you've only seen Murphy for a short time, but this scene really, really makes the audience feel for him. Like I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like
Hmm.
this dude does not deserve this. And it was almost like the Messiah kill. You're like, okay, he's going to be important because look at this,
Yeah.
and
Right. It was such
uh,
an over the top kill. It's almost like they
yeah,
were making a point.
yeah, and I mean, again, you see what total dirt bags these people are. So you have zero like emotions for the bad guys. Like sometimes I feel like, oh, this bad guy's got a reason for being a bad guy. No, these guys were just straight up douchebags. Like that's it, And but yeah, like oh gosh, like I don't know, so visceral and so like I'm sitting there like, oh, my stomach's like clenched up and like, oh my god. So yeah, super effective.
Yeah, so Verhoeven is known for his gore and stuff, and this movie originally was supposed to get a rated X rating, and
Yeah.
they cut it down to lose it and get it to R. And I don't know where they trimmed the fat because this looks like rated X. This scene, on top of like seeing bone and just ultra realistic gore. What's really disturbing to me about it, and it's a scene that stuck with me since the first time I saw it, is just the absolute disregard for his life and his emotions. And like as much as he's suffering, they're getting glee from it. And it's a really disturbing scene. And it's literally shocking. I was going to ask you guys, do you think this might be one of the most violent, disturbing, gory scenes ever shot and shown in a rated R movie?
I mean, it's possible it is. For what I've seen, it's up there. It's in the top, but I mean, I'm sure that there's some, you know, uh scary movies out there that might get you past that, but for this time, this was unheard of.
I mean,
No.
I'd let a 14-year-old child watch, Jason from the Lake do a kill, but this is a scene that I would not show a child under the age of like 17.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't know that they'd get away with this scene now.
Right.
The
Yeah,
way that
agreed.
people like censor this kind of stuff, like we've seen guts falling out in horror movies. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was kind of like the newer one, right? Because
Hmm.
again, we're talking about the movies that came out in 70s and 80s. They
Mhm.
had no holds barred on this kind of stuff. They were really like really
Yeah.
graphic, and I think the 80s was the start of a lot more censorship in
Yes.
films
Yes.
because I know Reagan, I think, had a lot to do with it. So they started changing that rating system to be a little bit more stringent. And you know what? Like, I don't know if I agree with it or not.
I
So
don't.
yeah, I'm like, I don't know. Like, leave this alone because it makes so much more impact.
There's
It,
no
it
need to
makes it more
sanitize
real
art.
world. It
Yeah.
makes it makes it more real world. Like when you take all the racism, the violence, the misogynism, when you take all that out of movies, it really starts feeling less like real life. And I said this in Beverly Hills Cop and a couple of the other ones. It's like I'm obviously against all that stuff, like any good human being would be, but it is part of the world. And when you're trying to tell these stories that dip into these darker parts of life and you take that out, it just feels ingenuous to me. That's why I think movies from the 70s have a flavor that you won't get today. Like The Bad News Bears, for instance. You couldn't make that movie today. You couldn't do it. And it's a movie for kids. And it really had a real life feel to it because these kids talked the way kids would have talked in the 70s.
Right.
Yeah, and if you like, it's a powerful vehicle. Let's say that's it. It's a powerful vehicle if you handle that stuff right, because you know who is saying these things. Because, like you said, Des, it happens. But if you can see it shown in this format, I almost think that, hey, it draws more attention to it, and you're like, hey, so this total douchebag is doing this in this movie. I don't know if I want to be like this guy.
Yeah, don't be a
You know,
total
like,
douchebag.
don't be a douchebag. Yeah, don't be a dick or a Bob or a whatever.
Don't be a bobbing dick.
Yeah, don't be a bobbing dick. Moral of the story, kids.
Oh God.
Oh
Anyway, yeah.
Lord. So let's move on. I think that this scene leaves most of us a little taken aback, but suddenly Murphy is somehow still alive, which I can't quite figure out how he's still alive, but they medevac him to a hospital and they're trying to save him. Now, I also question, are they actually trying to save him, or are they trying to keep him alive long enough so that OCP can get their hands on him? That's my thought. But
100%. Yes.
yeah, you hear the doctors calling the time of his death. Now, all of a sudden, you see a screen. You see scientists attaching items, discussing things in front of him, but not talking to him, not speaking to him. It's clear that they're treating him as an object at this point. You know that you're seeing from Murphy's point of view because you were seeing Murphy's point of view in the hospital. So he's now been taken, he's been made into something else, and you get your first little peek as he moves past a video screen. What do you think?
I thought that was like so effective and so awesome, because you're just hearing, and let me tell you, the sound of him walking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a freak. I love it. Like I'm like, it really lets you like. They're so like, it's just like a nice gut punch of, yeah. He's like, it makes you feel like he's heavy. First
Yes.
of all, like the weight, and that he is a cyborg. Like, you really get that. But I love that you just see his head in the beginning.
And it's
going
kind
by
of
there.
fuzzy. It's like kind of out of
Yeah.
out of view a little bit. It's just like you see it, but you don't see it.
Yeah, and the cool thing about seeing the office life through his eyes, when they're doing all that stuff, and then it's New Year, he gets a kiss, like it was cool. Like I don't know that I'm really hard pressed to find something in this movie, the way it was shot or the way it was handled, that I did not like. So, but yeah, again, super cool. And he gets his reveal, which is the best.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really slow peeling of the onion on the reveal. So the reveal in Robocop is happening. You see him through the wavy glass. You see just the shot of the back of his head. He gets into the cage with his handlers. You're seeing him through like the wire mesh. Like they're doing it on purpose so that you don't really get a good look at him on purpose, because it was building up that excitement to see the Robocop, see the android in all his glory.
Yeah, that guy. The fun thing about that whole part too is they have that perp in there that's all like, yeah, I'm a repeat offender, blah blah. And he's the guy when Robocop is going by, he's like, what the fuck is this? Right? Or what the hell? I'm pretty sure he said fuck, but I don't know. So yeah, it was like, you're like, man, like that is the audience's they're trying to say that's the audience speaking, right? Like you're like,
Yes.
what the heck? So yeah, and it's glorious anyway.
It is the feet. Oh man, like when they have that first shot looking up at him in the chair, and you see those feet with the big toe. Oh, I loved it.
It's the design is so good.
It really is.
So the interesting thing about the way he looks and the design, first of all, like this suit was super, super difficult to get Peter Weller into. Like they put him into that suit on the first day and it took him about 10 hours. And they missed the whole day of shooting because it took them that long to get him in the suit. Now, obviously, they streamlined it and got it so that they could get some shooting done. But it was very uncomfortable. He couldn't pee in it. Like it was like there was a lot going on with that suit. And he had also done a bunch of movement work with a coach. And the coach had told him to like move like he was doing ballet.
Yeah, I heard that. That's like, what? Come on.
That's not going to work either. So I'm really glad that, Verhoeven stuck to his guns and was like, that's not going to work. You need to do it this way. Like, I guess he was kind of doing like some robot stuff, like the robot dance, like, and they were like, yeah, you can't do that.
I thought Weller killed it as the robot. There's some scenes where he is like, the robot's suffering and it's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah. You really see he ended up doing a fantastic job once they had like their come to Jesus moment and got past the arguing between Verhoeven and Weller. They made it work, and it's amazing.
And wasn't he just driving the car around with the top part on? He wasn't wearing the bottom half of the suit when he was driving the car around.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I didn't know
I don't
that.
know about that either. I mean,
but that makes sense. If they can't see the bottom, why put him in the bottom?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Give him a break. Give him a break.
Yeah, and so let's see here.
We're gonna see the gun.
Oh, wait, before we move on, like that little scene when he goes and sits in the chair, and that's the first time you hear him speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they're like, when you are at rest, you will sit in a chair. And he's like, I understand. And I'm like, that's so cool. But then the baby food scene, freaking my favorite.
That guy.
He's asking, he's like, oh, so, like, what's going on with him? Like, how do we run this guy? He's like, well, we have a rudimentary paste that sustains his organic tissue. And this guy, I can't remember his name for the life of me. I feel like I should know it, but Bob's sidekick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, tastes like baby food.
Knock yourself out.
And it was like, I thought that scene was cool. Like, I don't know, like all these little touches, like, again, they just add up to something. Like you said, Des, it makes it feel human.
Yeah.
Like here's this guy like, yay, baby food.
and I really liked his character, and we're gonna see him in a couple of the later scenes giving some really nice smiles and some really human touches to the movie. I liked his character a lot.
Same. Yeah, and I'm a total freak, and like I like taste of baby food.
Oh, I would have eaten it.
Yeah, like you get the little fruit. I don't like the beef flavor or whatever.
No.
If you're getting fruit flavors, you're like, oh, that's yummy, banana.
Yeah, give me the banana apple sauce flavor. Give me Robocop flavor.
Yeah, Robocop. It looked like meatball flavor though. Didn't it? It looked like meatballs.
I was thinking like prune puree or something.
I don't even want to talk about how Robocop goes to the bathroom. Can we not go there?
So,
well, wait a second. I just want to, before we move ahead, I want to just say that this is also the first time we learn of Robocop's prime directives, which are the rules that he operates by, because these are important.
Mm-hmm.
His first one is to serve the public trust. His second one is to protect the innocent. The third one is to uphold the law. And then there's a fourth one, but it says it's confidential. It won't show.
Yep.
So he's got a prime directive that he doesn't even know what it is.
Classified. Yep.
He is going to bend these rules throughout the movie, and we'll talk about it.
His first montage of fighting crime when we get there. Oh, it's amazing. I love it. I love it.
His first night, he's on a killing spree. I mean, let's be honest.
So he's at the shooting range, and all of the cops are shooting off their pistols, and it quickly becomes apparent that someone's gun is different. Everyone stops to watch, including Lewis, because it's loud and it's shooting fast. It's not just the regular revolver or pistol that most of the other policemen have. She notices him twirl the gun and put it back in his holster, and you automatically see the light bulb go ding over Lewis's head. Her spidey sense is tingling. Then he goes to take out a police car, grabs keys, peels out, bottoms out on the ramp with sparks flying, just like we've seen before. So obviously wiping him clean did not really make him a blank slate.
Yeah, so this gun is freaking awesome, man. This is an Uzi. It's a fully automatic handgun. You put this in Lewis's hand, and it's literally like a machine gun. Yeah. It's awesome. And you notice he's getting full automatic spray when he's pulling the trigger, but then the last two shots, he pop, so he can use it like a handgun too. I was impressed with this weapon.
So that weapon, fun fact here, that weapon is actually a modified Desert Eagle.
Oh, cool.
So it is a real gun that they modified to get it to do the burst, that's triple burst that you have, and to make it look more beefy. But that thing exists. I actually saw, I know somebody that owns one.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, it is unmodified. It's a crazy looking gun. In a dude's hand, it already looks like, what is this?
Michelle, where you live, every 7-Eleven clerk has a Desert Eagle, from what I understand.
You are right. Oh, just a regular day in the park.
Yeah, you could actually buy one of those at Walmart down there, from what I understand.
Yeah, we can. Ammo included.
Awesome.
Oh my
I didn't
lord.
think about it.
Oh
All
my
right.
goodness. All right, so we're gonna move to the montage. We have our montage of RoboCop out there kicking ass.
First night on duty.
First night on duty, he just took the car out, and here he is kicking some serious butt. So we've got two shop operators that are just trying to do their business, and a guy comes in and demands all the money. You see it coming. He's in the long coat. He's looking shifty. Of course, RoboCop shows up and he wrecks this guy. He bends the muzzle of his gun. He uses his robo hand to toss him into a fridge. He probably does more damage than if they just given him the money. But
Yeah.
And they're watching again. I'd buy that for $1 right before.
yes, they are. Yep.
So
Yes.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
Yep.
good call.
And so our next one is there's two men. They're attacking a woman. They're attempting to rape her. They cut off her hair. There's a nice little bit of cinematography here, which this isn't a strong cinematography type movie, but they did it here where these two guys are attacking this woman and there's a giant billboard for Delta City behind them. And it's like, that's pretty interesting. And then on top of it, RoboCop pulls up and gets out of the car and he's walking towards them, and the headlights from the car are projecting his shadow up onto the wall behind them, and they're just like, what is this, right? And then of course he shoots the guy in the dick. So
that's the best. I was going to say that is probably one of my favorite shots.
Yeah, there'll be no Dick Bob in there.
No Dick Bob in there. I mean, this guy is in a denim jacket that has tassels on it, so he kind of deserved it.
Definitely. Definitely. So I wanted to ask, so you guys think that RoboCop killed the first guy when he threw him head first into the cooler?
I don't know if he was dead. I mean, really, you couldn't tell. He could have just been hurt. I don't know that he was dead from that.
Yeah, it might have just been knocked out.
Yeah, it was.
I just think he did a lot of damage because there's guns shooting up everything in that store. I'm thinking, like, how much insurance do these people have?
It's funny because you mentioned Delta City, how you get the picture of it behind the crime going on. And then the first time we see it is where the model is in the boardroom with the Ed 209 kill. And the body ends up on Delta
model.
City covered in blood.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a lot of foreshadowing that this is not going to work.
It really is. It really is. Okay.
So then the last bit of the montage is there is a terrorist at town hall, and he's holding the mayor hostage among some other people. He's already killed somebody. RoboCop shows up and takes him out by punching through a wall and ripping him out of the room before throwing him out of a window, which I'm pretty sure that guy's dead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
One of the funniest things to me about this scene is, first of all, the hottest car in this universe is the SUX 6000, the Sux 6000.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's the only car that looked like it was out of Time Cop. It was the one prop that I didn't like in the movie.
But the funniest thing, it's called the SUS. It's the Sux. Like, they probably made it look like crap on purpose.
Yeah, 6,000 sucks, basically. And they're making fun of the fact that everybody wants this piece of crap.
Yeah,
that capitalism. I think a nod to capitalism. Oh, we want it, but it's a piece of crap that gets 8 miles to a gallon.
Yes.
Right. And then the other thing that cracked me up about the scene is that criminal. He's screaming out a bunch of demands. He's like, "I want my job back. I want a recount. I want a new car, blah, blah, blah." And like the guy down who's trying to like keep him occupied is like, "Oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that. And we can throw in a Blaupunkt stereo for you too." And then the guy's like, "You're jerking me around." It's like,
don't jerk me off.
Yeah.
You believed you were going to get your job back. You were going to get a recount. You were going to get a new car, and all that was okay. But the Blaupunkt is the deal breaker.
Yeah, you know what?
Another good scene. Sorry.
What I appreciated about these small scenes too, like in the convenience store and everything, is, a lot of times they'll bring in just such the worst actors, and even though they're very short scenes, they seem kind of cheap in B-movie, and they didn't really do that with this. I thought that all the performances, all the kills, and all the small scenes stayed on par with the acting in the movie.
Yeah,
I thought so too. They were all like, for their little parts, they definitely made you feel like those were really, people doing their thing. Like I thought that was great.
Yeah, like in Beverly Hills Cop, when we did last week, when the two cops come to arrest Eddie, it's just like, oh my God, this is a C movie. These guys can't act. This is terrible.
Yeah, and then you get this movie that's like, again, you think, oh my God, this is going to be some cheesy sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And totally not. Totally not at all. Yep. But so the next scene I think is him at his school. So yeah,
it's another fake newscast.
yeah, another fake newscast. Which I mean, this whole little montage. Usually I go, oh, here's the montage, but excuse me, I'm like coughing on. But like the way they put this together felt more significant because it actually even showed you what he could do because
Right.
he
Yeah.
used so many different skills.
Mhm.
And the funny part is he drives right into the hostage situation. He drives his car in and just like breaks the little police ribbon.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought that was so funny for some reason. I'm like, here he goes, boop.
Yeah, and on the news they show a murder as he throws the man out of the
Yeah.
oh, that Robocop.
That's right, that Robocop.
They're showing snuff films on the news.
And then the Nukem commercial for the game Nukem.
Gosh, yeah.
A lot of that nuclear stuff was put into this movie.
Yeah.
You crossed my line of death.
Yeah.
Press the button.
Oh God, that's awesome.
Yeah. So after the ad for the Nukem game, again, we see Bob Morton flapping his jaws about Robocop, and he's projecting an end to old crime, to crime in old Detroit within 40 days. So that's a pretty bold prediction.
Yep.
But he's saying Robocop's going to do it. But on his way to the men's room, he continues to flap his gums. He's talking shit about Jones, who happens to be sitting in a stall listening to all of it. Now, Joan confronts him, tells him that he stepped over the line, and it's really clear that the confrontation between these two is not over.
No.
This is a great scene. It's a great scene. The one guy pisses his pants. I mean, people are genuinely scared of Dick. They know he's a killer, and Bob is just too dumb.
Plus, wait, they go in. He gets his little gold card for the executive lounge, right?
Mhm.
And it's just a bathroom. Like
That's all it is.
I was hoping that, and like, what does the non-executive lounge look like? You know, like, is there like crap everywhere? Is there pee on the floor? Like subpar urinal cakes? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, what's so special about this?
yeah. There's no kitchenette. There's nothing in
Yeah,
there.
what the heck? Were you supposed to lounge?
Oh my God.
Taking a dump, I guess.
Oh.
So do we think that Morton's stepping over the line? Is Jones a dinosaur and he should step away? Or what are we thinking?
Morton is like right now he is so ahead of the game. He's now VP. He's got the leading project going, and he just can't shut up. One, he's a cokehead. It's obvious. He's talking too much, and yeah, he's totally crossed the line. And I think that Dick Jones probably would have waited for Bob to make a mistake and then taken him out like in an executive way. But in this scene, Bob basically forces Dick's hand, and I think Dick is literally saying goodbye to him at the end of this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, later on.
I'm sorry, go ahead, honey.
I was going to say later on, he even says, you know, we could have been friends, you know, like
Yeah.
if you had just not been this much of an arrogant asshole, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and like when any big corporation, it was never about law enforcement or what was best for the community.
Yeah.
It was about selling military contracts. And Bob cost OCP billions of dollars with a stupid Robocop.
And I think that this is when Jones gets in touch with Bottinger. This is because now he has to put in a plan.
Oh, yeah.
So I think this is when it happens. I think this is about the time that it happens. I mean, you never really know for sure if he's been working with him all along, but I don't think so. I think that this is when he says, I'm going to use this guy to my advantage.
Yeah. I feel like this is where Dick Jones decided that he was gonna have Bob murdered, and he was gonna take the Robocop out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And 209 is not off the shelf for Dick Jones yet. It's not a done deal.
No. Okay, so Robocop is now having himself a nice little nap, and he's under the ever watchful eye of the OCP scientists, and that is sarcasm. He begins to flash back to his murder, and the graphs that are hooked up to him start jumping like crazy. He's seeing his wife. He's seeing his son. Robocop jumps up and leaves. OCP employees panic and they try to chase him down. It's like, I'm not sure how you think you're going to stop him, but okay. On the way out of the precinct, Lewis sees him, stops him, and asks him his name. She just says, "What's your name?" She calls him Murphy. And though Robocop seems stunned for a minute, he excuses himself and he leaves. He gets into a car and leaves to fight crime before anyone can stop him. Lewis and Reed then get chewed out for interfering with Robocop, and the scientists want to run a check on him, take him offline, and Morton's like, that's not happening. He just had a bad dream. Everything's just going to continue on like it is. So is this the first cracks in the OCP grand plan for Robocop?
Yes.
Oh, definitely. But like the acting in that scene too, like the grimace that he has when he's having the nightmare, I was like, ooh, like, it was like really like visceral looking when he's like physically in pain. He looks like,
yeah. Well, also the other thing that we have to remember is legitimately he is doing all of his acting with his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has to like grimace and like that's the only way you get any emotion from him because the rest of him is robot.
Peter Weller killed it.
Suit, but
Peter Weller killed it. I mean, without Peter Weller's acting, this isn't working. Like he could have, if he had dropped the ball with the movement and like you guys said, with the facial expressions, this isn't going to work, So I thought his performance was just great.
Yeah. And you could tell what he was feeling. It's just, I thought it was amazing. Just like you said, Des, because so he goes, right. One of the things he does later is visit his old house.
Right.
And the same thing. He's like seeing all these things and he's walking through there. And it's crazy because you can't see his eyes. You can't see anything. But you can tell just even from his movements that he's uncomfortable. Like, yes. I'm like, how can you... I don't know. It's amazing. I was like, man.
He really did an amazing job acting through that very heavy, very uncomfortable suit.
Yeah. I was a little confused because a little later in the movie he's going to say, I can feel my family, but I can't remember them. And it kind of felt like he was remembering them when he was walking through the house. So wasn't really sure what he meant by that. But yeah, I agree with the him giving the feeling that he was uncomfortable with his movements.
Right. So one of our bad guys, Emil, is robbing a gas station. He's heckling the attendant. He's threatening to shoot him when Robocop shows up. Robocop says to him, dead or alive, you're coming with me. And immediately, Emil knows that Robocop is the police officer he had a hand in killing. Like, he recognizes that immediately.
Yes.
He yells at him, we killed you. And this makes Robocop, hesitate, and he doesn't understand. All of a sudden, it's throwing him off. He hesitates. Emil throws his cigarette on the ground, and the area is quickly flooding with gasoline. So we get a good old-fashioned Hollywood explosion as the gas station blows up. Robocop finally snaps out of it. I suppose an explosion in your face will do that. And he shoots at Emil as he's attempting to escape on his motorcycle. He shoots out just enough of the motorcycle to disable it. Emil crashes into a car and flies onto the pavement. Robocop grabs him and demands to know who he is, but Emil is unable to talk. Back at the precinct, Robocop uses computers to search through the records and matches Emil's face to his name and records. He sees known accomplices, and it includes all the men that killed him, and it also lists the murder of Officer Murphy as one of the suspected crimes. Now, this is one of my favorite scenes, because when the cop is telling Robocop he's in a restricted area, he extends his computer output to plug into the computer, and it looks like he's giving him the finger, and I don't know, it makes me giggle.
Yeah, I thought it was funny, too. So did the gas station attendant survive the explosion?
Yes, you see him running away.
Oh, you do? Okay, I was gonna ask because I didn't know. I was wondering that myself.
When he says, we killed you, at some point behind Robocop, you see the gas station attendant run out with his book clutching against his chest, and he looks at Robocop and he looks at Emil and he takes off.
Oh, good. The nerd got away.
Emil is just such a stupid kid. He's ruthless. He's dumb. I think he's dumber than he is ruthless, but he's both. And I was really surprised to see him show up later in the movie. I thought Robocop had killed him. Yeah. It was unclear what happened. And when he showed up again, I thought he was either dead or really hurt. And was he arrested? What happened there? Maybe we got a scene that was cut that we never saw.
That could be. Maybe they edited it out. And you're like, oh, wait, would have made more sense if they kept it in. But.
Right. Yeah. Well, the scene that happens right after this is where he goes to the house. And he sees the automated tellers trying to sell him the house. And of course, that's not going to work. He's seeing his wife. He's seeing his child. And he smashes the automated realtor and leaves because he's now on a mission. Like he has a mission of what he's going to do. And I found that this was a little bit of a strange one. He goes to a nightclub to arrest Leon Nash, which is one of the guys that's in Bottinger's group in his gang. He finds him. There's a little scuffle, but I mean, let's face it, like Nash was trying to kick him in the nuts and that's not going to work. He finds him and he grabs him and he pulls him out of the club. And then like later on we see Nash and I don't know what happens. Like, I'm not quite sure. They probably could have removed this scene in the club because Nash is just fine and in the gang still later. So I'm not really sure what happens after that.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. That was
It's
weird.
funny. Right before that scene, there's a commercial with a fake dinosaur. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah,
Yes.
pretty funny.
Okay. Did they do this specifically to make the Ed 209 scenes look better to the audience?
Maybe because it's the claymation.
Yes. So I feel like they're saying, this is what you guys are used to seeing in the 70s, and Ed 209, this is like really cutting edge, stop motion.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. I thought they were just making a funny commercial.
I felt like it was like, let's A-B these two things, and you'll see how great Ed 209 looks.
That's funny. Wait, that could be. I'm not discounting that. There's no proof against it. But in the scene in the nightclub, one of the funny things is when he knocks the gun out of his hand, and it lands in this dude's hand, and he just keeps dancing with it. And they're like, hilarious. Like, they don't even care that this is happening. The people in the club,
No, because when he grabs Nash and he pulls him out of the club, everyone dancing that has parted to let him go by just go right back in.
It's pretty funny.
It was an odd scene, but I don't know about you guys. This movie felt like 45 minutes to me. It didn't drag. Like a lot of movies I'll get towards the end and I'm like, oh my God, is this thing over yet? This one, it ended and I was like, that's it? It's over?
No, because how long is it? Like 2 hours almost, right?
Maybe.
God, it felt like it was like...
And really good. I mean, there was not really a slow moment,
No. The pacing was like light speed.
It is 1 hour and 43 minutes.
I can't believe that. I would have never guessed that. I would have thought an hour 15, hour 20. I mean, this movie, it really goes by quickly. It's an easy watch.
All right. So the camera now swings to Morton, and he's in his home sniffing coke with two women. It's wholesome.
Two bitches.
Two bitches.
Yeah, bitches leave.
Bitches leave.
It's and it's like so weird because it's Red Foreman saying it, but
I love it all too. See you later, Bobby.
Yeah, call me.
You're gonna call me.
Oh my God. Yeah. So wholesome family entertainment happening here at Bob's house. So they're interrupted by the doorbell, and it's Clarence Bottinger, who proceeds to short Morton repeatedly in the legs. And again, not overly gory, but looks really real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some meat.
I felt the pain in those shots.
Yeah.
Really.
And there's some meat coming out. Like I looked. They've got some like burger stuffed in those holes. Yeah.
So Bottinger goes ahead and he shoves a DVD into the old machine, and who's there but our friend Dick Jones. Bottinger leaves a live grenade on Morton's table, and Dick Jones proceeds to tell him via video, you're screwed, basically. We could have been friends, but no. So Morton, Bob, is trying to like crawl to the table to get the grenade, and he touches it and it falls down and his home explodes and he's dead.
Yeah.
And
yep.
That's the end of Morton.
He was living pretty high on the hog and he just couldn't stop poking the bear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he had to take a victory lap. And it's like, don't do that. Don't take the victory lap. Just keep your head down and you'll be fine.
Yeah, endless. I wanted to ask you guys this because it was fun. I know you guys love superhero movies. Did you guys feel kind of like once Murphy started getting his identity back a little bit, I was making a parallel between him and the Thing, kind of like, he had lost his family and he had lost his identity, but, like he felt like a monster. They're strong, but they feel like freaks. And I don't know. It's just kind of, to me, I was making a parallel between the Thing and Robocop. It's kind of weird, but.
No, I think that's a good parallel because he definitely now sees himself as this inhuman thing.
Yes.
And you don't get him so much, like, he doesn't really like dwell on it. but he's definitely thinking about it, and especially later on when he gets to see his face, and
Yeah.
you get that whole oh, the humanity kind of
Yeah.
moment.
You know,
But
Pope.
he still has enough of the fact that they wiped his memory enough that he doesn't remember everything.
Right.
So I think that was good. Like, he didn't just all of a sudden, I am Murphy. Like, he didn't have that,
Right.
which I thought was good, because it would have been too much if he just remembered everything. Like, you know,
Yeah, he starts taking his identity back like in the very last scenes of the movie. But again, I don't know if it's how much of it is him reinventing himself and how much of it is him actually remembering himself.
yeah.
So go ahead.
So Bodiger takes his muscle to a factory, and it's a drug manufacturing factory. He's trying to make a deal with them, and Robocop, of course, is going to break it up because he's on a mission now. And maybe Leon Nash gave him a tip as to where they were going to be. Maybe that's how he finds them. I'm not really sure, but every bad guy in the place opens fire on Robocop, and of course, he's not having any of it. The bullets are bouncing off him. His auto targeting is helping him just take everyone out with that crazy gun. He gets his hands on Bodiger and roughs him up pretty hard. He's throwing him through glass windows, and he's kind of not trying to kill him. I think he's kind of playing possum with him because he could have killed him very quickly if he wanted to. And Bodiger says, I work for Dick Jones at OCP. And of course, our good friend Robocop is recording this because he knows that that's evidence. He brings Bodiger to the precinct to get booked and then heads right back to OCP. And Dick Jones is waiting for him. Robocop attempts to arrest him, and his systems start to shut down. Now, our Prime Directive 4 comes into play. Any attempt to arrest an officer of OCP will result in a shutdown. The Ed 209 reappears, and Jones attempts to use it to erase our friend Robocop. And this is quite the scene, the fight between the two of them. Michelle, two titans going at it. What do you think?
It was great because Robocop was the underdog in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point in the movie it was really important not to have him just kick complete ass.
Right.
You still had to be a little afraid of Ed,
Mm-hmm.
but the best thing about it is Ed follows him and can't walk downstairs.
His arch nemesis are stairs.
Yeah, and the noises the thing is making, right? It's like growling, it's doing this thing. And then, though, it sounds like a whining kid when it falls on its back.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a pig.
Like really
wheeling of a pig.
But what really broke my heart was when he comes out. He comes out of the stairway.
Yes.
And all his comrades, his fellow cops,
mm-hmm.
Are there to take him out. And it's just like, oh man, and you see him even having that moment of what's happening here.
Right.
And it's like, wow, his acting with that, again, you're like, oh shoot, you feel his, I don't want to say sadness, but definitely surprise and almost like a betrayal moment.
Right. Disappointment.
Right. Yeah. Disappointment. Oh,
yeah, I wrote that down. I thought it was absolutely heartbreaking, this scene. I thought it was heartbreaking. I thought that it also played a little strange because throughout the entire movie, the police force really seeming to be like, cops with cops, and, cops are getting killed and this is bullshit. And we're going to strike, for our brothers. And then they just turn on Robocop because OCP said so.
Yeah, I thought that was sad.
And I want to say something about the showdown between the Titans. Is Ed 209 really a Titan? Okay, this freaking thing, you're telling me all the money they put into it, they didn't, if it falls over, it can't get up? You got to put a fucking kickstand on the back of this thing. I mean, how long is it going to be?
You have to understand, in old Detroit, there's going to be buildings with stairs.
Well, not only that, how long is it going to be before people do cow tipping on Ed 209? I mean, you run over and push the thing over and you're done.
Yeah, and obviously Bob, though, Dick, this highlights Dick's just really terrible foresight and really bad planning, honestly, because it was his idea, right?
He's tunnel vision. He's got a tunnel vision. As far as he's concerned, this is the answer, and he doesn't want to see that there's weaknesses in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a third leg on Ed 209.
Third leg.
You need R2 had 3 legs. That's why he didn't fall over.
Oh my Lord. No,
Yeah.
but there's some design flaws.
Yeah,
sure.
but I did write that, it actually tugged at my heartstrings a little bit in the scene where the police start, trying to kill RoboCop. And I feel like, he's innocent in this. He's only done what's asked of him. He's been a good cop, and these cops turn on him. And I thought it was a little out of character for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that a couple of the cops run up and they're like, he's a cop. He's with us. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that did happen, but ultimately you have, 50 dudes opening fire on him.
Now, let me ask you this. The cop that was negotiating with the town official that RoboCop throws out the window, he is not Detroit police, right? He's like more of a state police or something like that.
He definitely seemed like he was with another force because they even had different uniforms, and I think there was like a different insignia on his arm.
Yes. So I think in the parking garage, I think that was a mix of cops. I think it was a mix of his force and the Detroit force. And I was kind of hoping that the Detroit police were kind of siding with RoboCop a little bit. And those were the voices we were hearing saying, hey, he's a cop. He's a cop.
It could be. I mean, that makes the most sense.
I'm pretty sure I recognize I think it was 3 cops that approach him and say, he's a cop. He's with us. I think I recognized all of them from the precinct.
Okay. And then I think there were some of the other cops from that other Dick's force that were.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just go with that because it makes me feel better.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So Murphy's taken quite the beating at this point, and he escapes by kind of rolling down. It's a parking garage that has those different levels. He rolls down to get away from the police, and they're giving chase, but good old Lewis pulls up and rescues him. So points for Lewis. She knew what was going down, and she was going to do what she could to pull her partner out of there.
Do you guys feel like she was sweet on Murphy right from the very beginning of this movie?
No.
I think that they were definitely friends, but I was shipping them for sure. I was like, "Ooh, Lewis, you got to get with Murphy." But obviously, Murphy was really in love with his wife and his family, right? So it wasn't going to go there. But another nod to none of that weirdness with misogyny and over sexualization, because it was like, yeah, they can just be friends.
Yeah. In fact, I thought
they can be friends and like each other without it being about sex.
I thought she was the alpha partner in their partnership as cops. I thought
she was.
She absolutely was.
Like, I feel like she could have dropped Murphy like a bad habit.
But you know what's good about it too? Because again, it turned that whole thing on the head where usually it's the guy with all the testosterone doing all the stuff, but it was her, and then he becomes this absolute badass later when he becomes RoboCop, but he still has enough empathy to not completely just trash everyone.
Yes.
If it was some like maniac cop that they turned into RoboCop, it wouldn't have worked.
True.
Right. I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did psych profiles on who they were going to do either. I don't know that they, went into that, but like, what do they do when they pick?
Because they definitely said, like, I think when they were in the elevator after the Ed 209 had killed the guy, they said, we've been moving candidates. So they were looking at certain people for certain reasons.
Yeah. So, okay. So on that point, then they were like, okay, this guy Murphy looks like he's got some good credentials and good skills and what we want. So we're going to move him to the shitty, violent precinct. So hopefully he dies. And I wonder though, it seemed like they didn't really have a choice because OCP, I think they even mentioned that he said, well, OCP's moving people around. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was probably either you move or you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
But yeah, like totally the poor guy. So they definitely had their eyes on him already and moved him over there and was like, yeah, he might get killed. Hooray.
Yeah. Yep.
So now we have another fake newscast, and it's explaining that the police force is readying to strike at midnight. They're striking against OCP, as we've seen them talking about pretty much all since the beginning of the movie. Meanwhile, OCP is really busy cleaning up after the melee between Ed 209 and our friend RoboCop. Bodiger, of course, shows up bold as brass because he got bailed out by Dick Jones. But Dick is pissed that Clarence told RoboCop that he worked for Jones. So, I mean, I don't blame him for being mad. His memory is admissible in court. It's a video. and Clarence implicated Dick Jones in a huge mess. So now he needs Clarence to go back out and kill Robocop. And the promise behind that is when he kills Robocop and all those workers start going into Delta City to build it, that's 2 million people living in trailers working who are going to want gambling, drugs, sex workers, and Clarence can run it all and make all that money. Yeah. So he gives Bodegar the tracker for Robocop to keep an eye on where he is and gives him a bunch of military grade weapons and sends him on his way. And this is setting us up for the big end game.
So we're going to get a nauseatingly misogynist scene here where Clarence goes into Dick's office and it's he
Gross.
sticks the gum to the secretary's name tag.
Yeah, again, they're driving home the fact that he's a douche. If you didn't know that already, basically.
And his face is all chopped up. And he's like, hey, baby, you want some of this? She's like, you are disgusting. Just go in the office. Keep the gum.
But after I get out of here, gross.
Yeah. And he says,
I
keep
think
the
he even
gum.
gives her kissy faces as he shuts the door. It's like,
he definitely does. Yeah. I couldn't gloss over that scene because I was just like, come on. I can't wait till this guy gets killed.
Yeah.
Super cringy.
And then my favorite, he's like, he's a cyborg, you idiot.
He's a cyborg, you idiot. He recorded every word you said. His memory's admissible as evidence. You involved me. You're gonna have to kill it.
So yet again, we find ourselves in an abandoned factory. You kind of start to feel like pretty much old Detroit is all old abandoned factories.
But isn't it the same one?
It is.
It's the same one. Yeah.
It was the same exact one?
Yeah.
Yes. It's the mill again.
I didn't catch that.
Isn't that interesting? He's going back to where he was killed.
Yeah, well, she took him there to repair himself, and I thought that was a questionable choice. Like, this shouldn't bring up any bad feelings while you're having nightmares.
Yeah.
This is where they took your humanity.
This is where they shot you in the head.
And he didn't make that connection, so you think, okay, interesting. Like, there's things he remembers and doesn't. Because he clearly wasn't like, yeah, why'd you take me here, Lewis?
Good observation. He didn't recognize the place for sure, but I did.
You're like, man, bad call, Lewis. Another bad call.
Oh, my Lord.
That one and looking down. You're two bad calls, girl.
Yes, don't look down and don't bring Robocop back to that spot.
Oh, my Lord. So she informs him that half the cops didn't come to work today and the rest of them would be walking off the job at midnight. They're all going on strike. And we all know that, old Detroit's already a mess with the cops. So we know where we're going. She brings him his gun. She brings him a drill and she brings him some baby food.
Baby food.
The baby food. So here's where we finally get a look at what's left of Murphy's face. He removes his visor because he's making repairs. His face is pretty much still intact other than the hole in his forehead.
There's like a bullet sticking out of his head.
Yeah.
I think it's just supposed to be like a piece of metal, like a plug. I don't think it's an actual bullet.
Yeah, I think they plugged it up.
I know that sounds disgusting, but I think that's what it is.
It looked great, though. The face looked great.
Yeah. And honestly, they did a really nice job transferring between his real skin into the fake skin that's attached to the robotic part on the back of his head.
It looked dynamite.
Yeah. I thought it was a really good practical effect.
What about the long ass screws he pulls out of his head? Yeah. I was like, yeah, like just watching him pull those things out, and
they do that on purpose. That's done for effect, for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Dylan, what are you ever going to do with a drill? That's a joke in our house. We didn't have a drill for the longest time. We always say, what are you ever going to do with the drill?
That's funny.
Then we got a drill, and we used it for everything. And we were like, what are you going to use a drill for?
Yeah, so as soon as he took those screws out of his head, that was when I thought of him, like, oh, good thing he had a drill.
Oh, my Lord. So, yes, at this point, this is when he gets a look at himself. Like, it's, I think it's purposeful as far as the director goes, that she holds up a reflective surface that's all kind of wavy and a little warped.
And it's broken. It's a broken piece of glass, broken mirror.
Pretty much. Like it's warped. He looks like, you can see himself, but he looks all warped. He doesn't look like Murphy. And honestly, he doesn't look like Murphy anymore, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The point is that done on purpose to make him look even more monstrous than he already is. He asks about his family. She tells him that they've moved on. They had a funeral, and I questioned, they had a funeral. What did they bury? I'm not sure, but it could have been an empty casket for all I know. But
The arm they cut off.
Oh no!
Buried the arm. Oh shit!
Bury it.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
So this is when he says he can feel them, but he can't remember them. And then she attempts to soothe him a little bit, and he says to leave him alone. He wants some time alone. So it's kind of an emotional scene in a movie that has not really been emotional up until now.
Yeah.
So you said earlier, Des, about this part, where he can feel his family but doesn't remember them.
Mm-hmm.
I almost think because he remembers that one scene in the house. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much all he has. And so it almost feels like, it's like a feeling that they existed. But he can't really actually interact with that. Like, that's it,
It's barely a memory.
Yeah, barely. And so it's like this thing just poking him in his brain, but in the back of his mind almost. But it's like when you're trying to remember something so hard and you can't.
Yeah.
Right.
You're just like, oh, it's right there. And I think that's kind of where his family is at in his head now. But I thought it was good. I didn't want them to go much deeper into it.
No, you took the words out of my mouth. I think that in this movie, it would have stalled it out. And I think they gave us just enough of this. Just enough. It was perfect.
Yeah, like it could have, like enough emotion. That they really did a balance between everything. So you still had feelings, even if this movie was like a shoot 'em up type situation. Like there was plenty of heart in it.
Yeah, I felt for Murphy on several occasions during this movie.
So now the city is devolving into chaos. There's no police presence. Emil's back on the streets. He's been sprung by Dick Jones because Clarence obviously told him that he needed him. The rest of the gang all meet up with him, and he shows off. Clarence shows off the new guns he's got. These are like hand cannons, basically. They're gigantic, oversized guns that blow crap up.
Military grade weapons delivered by Dick.
Military grade weapons. Yeah,
that's right. Dick is like, we basically are the military.
We are the military. No problem, buddy.
No problem. But again, we're watching I'd Buy That for $1, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Down, right?
You've nailed it.
Oh, clearly.
What the heck? So, yeah.
So I think your theory at this point, we're going to have to go ahead and say, yes, these are foreshadowing commercials that we're about to get some horror.
Yeah. But the best horror is coming. Yeah, go on.
But is it? I think the grindhouse is coming. I think it's where we're going to get some fun for.
Yes. This is where we're stepping in almost to like a different genre here.
Yeah. I'm gonna foreshadow. That's my foreshadowing, folks.
Hell yeah. Okay. La Machine, I'm with you.
Oh my God. So Lewis is helping Murphy with his targeting system, and Boddicker shows up with his goons. They are following him with the tracker that Dick Jones gave him. So they know where he is, and they're coming for him. They start hunting him, but Robocop's ready for them. He takes out old Joe right away, and the bad guys scatter. Now, my thought in this scene here is they were using those guns like back in town, and they like literally blew up a car with one shot. They take a shot at Robocop here, and it's like sparks.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Robocop took out an Ed 209. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, but this gun has different levels of how much it can destroy with one shot.
Depending on who it's aimed at.
Correct.
So Emil jumps in the van. He's giving chase. Robocop steps out of the way right at the right time, and good old Emil drives right into a huge water tower full of toxic waste.
Michelle, take it because I know you have something to say.
It was again it's so not expected. I just thought, all right, like you first watch the movie, like, all right, he runs into the thing. Like you totally don't think he's gonna stumble through the back of the van, swimming in this waste, and is a melting mess. It was so gross.
The Toxic Avenger. This is fun. Yes. I love it.
I think they, like you were mentioning that they were trying to do maybe little nods to stuff in this movie, and guaranteed everyone was probably loving comic books that was working on this movie and all this other stuff, because he and the effects. I'm like, holy crap! It really looked like he was friggin' melting, and the noises he was making. Okay.
Yes.
Oh my god! I was just like, this is. You said nightmare fuel. Like,
Yeah.
I think this one was pretty bad.
It's so good. It's so good. And once again, we see the gang just no love for each other. Get away from me. Like, don't touch me, you freaking melting candle man.
Yeah, poor guy. Leon's just like, dude, don't touch me. And he runs away from him. So you're on your own, buddy.
And then when you see his demise.
So that's coming up. So Lewis is in her cop car and she basically runs right into Clarence. They hit each other and she's chasing him. And poor old Emil wanders right into the path of Clarence, and Clarence hits him and he just liquefies all over the windshield.
The head, though, the head bouncing off the windshield and over the roof. This scene is like, come on, this scene is amazing. This is great.
It is good. But here's the funny thing, too. Like, so this is also where you see that Robocop cannot run. The dude cannot run.
No.
So, like, he's walking away just fast enough from the toxic waste thing. You see him going off camera. So he never runs at all in the whole film. And I'm glad that they were able to make it to where that was not a problem, because I'm like, normally you can't move that fast. It's, you're going to get offed.
Right.
But so like, okay, they didn't really like play up with that fact.
Yeah, well, he was Jesse Owens compared to the Ed 209.
Oh, yeah. Ed is, he's a failure.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, and an interesting fact, the liquefaction that goes all over the windshield was watermelon guts and pig intestines.
I loved it.
Pig intestines.
I loved it.
Yeah, so that's where you get like the chunks, and like that like liquidy stuff was all watermelon. Yuck.
Yeah.
So pretty gross.
It's a
so
great
poor
scene.
old Clarence can't see, and he flips his SUX right into the ditch.
Doesn't he turn on his windshield wipers though first?
He does.
I love that. I
think he even does like the oh crap or something like that. It's like
spreading a meal out across his Emil milkshake across his windshield.
Yeah, gross.
Oh my lord. So he climbs out of the car and he opens fire on Lewis because she was right behind him. She stopped short and jumps out of her car. He jumps out and opens fire on her, and he hits her several times, and she falls down the embankment and into the dirty water. Robocop arrives just before he's about to kill her. Like I think he says something misogynistic like bye bye baby or something like that. I forget, but it's something stupid. And then Clarence kind of sees out of the corner of his eye, he sees Leon above him, and he's still got that big gun with him. So he's running to get into position while Clarence feigns surrendering. So you have different things happening during the scene. You have Clarence doing the fake surrender. You have Leon getting into position, and you have Lewis trying to drag herself to one of those oversized guns because it's right in front of her and she can see it, but she's hurt.
Yes, it's a race. Who's going to get to their objective first?
Yep. And unfortunately, the one that gets to their objective first is Leon. He unloads a huge bucket of scrap metal. And this is big scrap metal. This isn't like a little bucket.
And what a great scene. You really get the feeling that, that Robocop is crushed by this metal. I mean, it's a well shot scene.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just some rebar. Like there's like I-beams and stuff in this thing.
Yeah.
And Lewis reaches the gun just as it happens and shoots it, and now instead of sparks, it blows up the entire little building Leon's in.
Yeah, so. I don't get it. I don't know what that thing is shooting.
Plus, when Leon got to the little house thing or whatever, the control panel area, I honestly thought he was going to take a shot at Robocop with his big ass gun from.
So did I.
Yeah, so did I.
Why did he all of a sudden go? I think I'll use the rebar instead. Like, so that was a little weird. I think maybe. Obviously, they couldn't have gotten out of it if he shot him that way from there.
Right.
So they might have made that call just to use the rebar because he could survive that.
I don't know, though. But, I mean, the gun worked pretty good at the exact same range when she shot up to the tower. I think maybe he saw that when they used the gun on Robocop the first time, it was just sparks. So...
Well, maybe maybe that one was that one like maybe a malfunctioning one.
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know.
But yeah, like so.
I
don't know,
think
like,
it
this
was
lame
kind of a
idea.
plot device,
Yes,
because
that's what
they
I was
wanted to
saying.
have RoboCop incapacitated in some way.
But
Yeah.
not dead, not
But not
exploded.
dead.
Yeah.
Listen, in this movie, Verhoeven could do no wrong. I forgive it all. I'm asking no
Oh, yeah.
questions. I
I
love it.
wasn't mad about it, but like I just thought about it after. But I mean,
Yeah.
they are clearly kind of idiotic anyway. So
Definitely.
maybe they don't make the best choices. So you're like in character, yeah, this gets in character. So.
Yep.
So at this point, Clarence snaps because his whole crew's dead. It's just him. And honestly, I don't really think he cared about his crew.
Nope.
I think he just sees that he's kind of in a little bit of trouble here because it's just him now. Like he's got no backup at all.
Yeah.
He snaps. He grabs a sharp piece of metal. He starts attacking RoboCop. RoboCop is pretty good at deflecting it until he turns the sharp part towards him and he impales him right into the shoulder.
I have questions.
Yes.
Okay. There's no organic part of him there. Why is he screaming and writhing in pain? 1. And 2, why didn't Clarence stab him in the mouth?
Yeah, the face.
In the face.
Yeah.
But does he has to have some kind of receptors for feeling things, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to know when he was holding a gun, wouldn't be able to know. He has to have some tactile stuff.
Right.
But I do agree with you that it did sound like he was hitting flesh.
Yeah, and he's been shot in that same spot. I never heard him scream out in pain, like, he had a cavity in that. Ah!
A cavity.
But you know what? It was great, and it's not. And again, like I say in all these podcasts, back then they didn't think we were going to be doing a podcast ripping it apart. It was great effect. It gave a human element to, Weller's character, and I thought it was great. I wouldn't change it for anything, and he played it great.
I mean, at one point I was saying to myself, like, how can this guy get a piece of metal through him, but like bullets ricochet off him, like, somebody just throwing a Tic Tac at you.
The metal was already compromised. There were already holes in it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was already compromised. He had already taken many, many, many bullets. Yeah. So
he shoved it in an existing hole.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
I'll buy that for $1.
Hold on. Yep. Oh, we're talking since you said that, you know how hard it was for me not to laugh when Dylan said earlier that this guy fingered Bottinger. I was holding my mouth literally. Don't mess it up
for that one. I'm sorry.
That's how this podcast is going to open. Do you know how hard it was for me not to laugh earlier when Dylan said he fingered Bottinger? That's the first thing you hear.
Good quote. I completely sign off on that.
Okay. I love it.
So here comes the very end. Good old RoboCop deploys that computer input, that nice sharp piece of metal, and stabs Clarence in the neck with it. And that is the end of Bottinger.
Man, great. Yeah. Just great.
And all the kills here at the end, I feel like lifted the mood a little bit and left me with a fun feeling in this movie. I think if they were all like that first Murphy kill, it would have been too much. And I thought this gave it, it just lightened it up. I mean, we're still getting great kills and great gore and great, action, but it wasn't quite as disturbing.
No, and they also had to leave that gravitas for the hero.
Yes.
Right.
Like they had to be like, this is really important. This is awful for a reason.
Yeah.
If you're right, like they would have totally tossed that effect away if they had done it multiple times. So these guys don't deserve anything that momentous, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I mean the egregious amount of blood squirting out of his neck. It was I was having fun with it. Oh my God, this is great. This is awesome.
So at this point, he calls for Lewis, who's still alive. She says, "I'm a mess." And he promises they'll fix you. They fix everything, which I was like, "Whew, that's
multiple meanings in that statement."
Yes. I also noticed that pretty much after he took off the visor, his voice went from less metallic and less robotic. It became a little bit more human.
That was definitely an interesting choice because it's not like he had a voice modulator in his visor,
Yeah.
But yeah, again, maybe it's that you see the movement towards more human stuff, and so I guess that was definitely a choice, even if you're like suspending your disbelief about the science of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Really more like
right. So one last scene to go. We're now returning to OCP, and Dick Jones has got the floor, and he's, hamming it up. He's announcing that the strike's going to work in their favor. They're going to put Ed 209s on every corner and get immediate public support on them. There's one downstairs right now guarding the building. All right. So our friend Robocop drives up to the building that Ed 209 attempts to tell him to move, and he has 20 seconds to comply. And that's just long. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just said as usual. 20
yes.
You have 20 seconds to tip him over. Go.
Yeah. And 20 seconds turns out to be just long enough for him to get one of those hand cannons and make the guy explode. So he basically is just legs at this point. Just again, very different ways that hand cannon works. So some people are shooting it blows up. Other people shoot it sparks, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Jones is still up in the boardroom. He's pumping himself up. They're all eating it up. They're clapping for him until Robocop opens the doors behind him. He tells them that he's there because Jones is wanted for murder, and he's wanted for the murder of Bob Morton. Joan takes the head of OCP hostage at this point, the old man. And I'm not really sure why they had a box with a gun in it in the boardroom, but okay.
Yeah.
Of course, the head of OCP takes this pretty personally, and he fires them. So that means Directive 4 is satisfied.
He grabs the old man at gunpoint and is, demanding a helicopter, and, Robocop can't do anything. So that's when he fires him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he does explain, because he goes in and says, I am not allowed to take action against an executive employee of OCP, I think he says. Right?
Yes.
And so he kind of lays that down to where the old man figures out,
yes,
I should fire his ass.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it was good, because again, if he had just come in and the old man just fired him, like, you would have been like, how did he even know that?
We needed that setup. So
yes.
Gotcha.
He explained it. It was good. They didn't have anything where you're like, oh, because they filled out all those questions almost.
Yeah, and it's done in such a way where they're not like beating you over the head with it. It was just a couple of very nonchalant lines between Robocop and the old man.
Yeah.
That made that really pay off when Dick grabbed him and put the gun to his head.
Yeah. So then he fires him, and now Directive 4 no longer applies because he is no longer a senior. What do you call it?
I don't know if he's an employee. Executive.
Yeah, he's no longer an employee of OCP.
Yeah, he's no longer even an employee, let alone a senior employee. Mm-hmm. And he shoots Dick Jones many times, and our buddy takes a swan dive out the window.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Dick Jones.
Okay, so this is the exact same scene we're gonna get in Die Hard, and it didn't look as good as the Die Hard one.
No, I actually noticed that the special effects when Dick Jones is falling out of the window looks a little sketchy, a little suspect, but that's okay. I can forgive it.
And here we're going to get the fact that the old man is really a good guy. He was a little out of touch with his company, and he wasn't, I don't think he realized the kind of evil that was going on. And it just shows that, in my mind, I feel like the old man now has gotten rid of Bob, and I don't think Bob was a bad guy either.
No, he wasn't. Greedy, maybe. Yeah, but.
Yeah, greedy and ambitious, but not evil.
Yeah,
but,
he definitely has questionable morality.
Yeah, he likes bitches and cocaine.
Yeah,
and he also tells them to lose the arm. So there's some questionable morality, and you're like, oh, but what about his family? Oh, well, when he signed the paperwork, he became our property and all that stuff. So there's some questionable morality with Mr.
The old man is a good guy, and he looks at Murphy and he says, "What's your name, son?" And he says Murphy. And I got a great feeling.
Best ending.
Yeah, great. Absolutely, very quick ending.
Yeah, and it leaves you with, all right, everything is pretty much right in the world as much as it can be. Like, he's got his identity back, so you're like, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's like a feel-good moment because all the bad guys are dead, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, this is great, everything tied up, and now he's Murphy again.
Yeah, except for the fact that this guy's going to be living God knows how long this thing's going to live, and he's never going to love again. He's never going to have physical contact with a human being. He's living the worst nightmare you could possibly imagine.
Well, does he even
Wow,
know
that's
that,
really
though?
dark.
It is dark. Imagine being this guy now. He knows he was murdered. He knows he had a family. And now what? His whole life is going to be sitting in a chair and then going out and beating the beat? It's
Beating the
horrifying.
beat.
It's horrifying. If I'm Murphy, you know what I'm saying? Kill me. Kill me. I
But,
mean,
you know, okay, go on. Yeah.
no, do you want to live like that?
Well, as opposed to just being dead, I don't know. Like,
Oh, kill me.
I don't know.
You want to be a face? You just want to be a face?
Well, I mean, again, we don't know how much he wants those things anymore, though.
Right. True. I mean,
Right?
he is a
Feels
cyborg.
his family. Look, he feels his family, but he doesn't remember them.
Well, then build me a Robocop woman with a face.
And this turns into Frankenstein after.
Yeah, someone I can sit next to at night.
You know how bad that goes, though.
You know the little thing that comes off his hand, his download thing?
Yeah.
Give him another one. And give him a female robo-wife.
I think this is the
End of the podcast.
No, this is the
I think you're getting
Skinemax
punchy.
the Skinemax special. Robocop. It's Robocop.
Robocop after dark.
Anyway, all right.
Look, well, I was gonna say it was such a satisfying ending, and it's
I
such a
thought
good
it was.
movie.
Yeah, I thought.
No,
It was.
all joking aside, though, I honestly felt like that would be a living nightmare if I was him. I don't know if I would want to go on.
Michelle, as our guest, why don't you give us your score first?
All right. Scale of 1 through 5. My score is 100 billion trillion. I love this freaking movie, and I have watched it over and over and over again. It does not get old for me. Like I love it so much. Like I don't know. That story is just enduring because it's a good hero story. It's a good, again, at the end, feel good. You get all the bad guys, like they've gotten their just desserts, shall we say. So like, yeah, you're just like, it's satisfying. You know, good again. 100 billion trillion. Whatever.
Okay.
That's my
So
score.
that's a 5 rewatch from Michelle.
Yeah, at least.
Delane, go ahead. What's your rewatch?
I'm going to give it a 4.5, and I'm only taking off a half a point for some of the wonky stuff that somebody that might never have seen this movie before, like maybe somebody that's, younger now might watch it and be like, oh, like the Ed 209 or, some of the other stuff that they might think looks a little dated. I mean, I personally think it was a lot of fun, and obviously we'll watch it again, but just going to take a little half a point off just for some of the special effects looking slightly outdated.
Okay, so that's a 4.5 from Delin rewatches. And as we all know, the sliding scale of rewatches was created by me, and there's absolutely no science involved. So I have not seen this movie in quite a while, and I was pleasantly surprised that it held up to everything that I had remembered it being, and actually more. So I am going to give it a 5.5 rewatch, which I know is against the rules, but I did invent it. So this movie, with your 4.5 and my 5.5 and Michelle's 5.5 rewatches, brings this to a perfect 5 rewatches. It's a perfect movie. If you haven't seen it, what are you waiting for? Go see this movie.
Is this the first perfect score you've given?
No, they all get a perfect score. Because we only review great movies. As always, I'd like to take a minute to thank our special guest. Thank you, Michelle. And I'd also like to thank you, the listener, for stopping by and supporting the podcast. If you would like to further support the podcast to help us turn out better content, you can do that on the Anchor page. Next week, we will be reviewing and discussing The Crow. Back by popular demand, we'll have Tony joining us. Can't wait. And as always, this podcast was recorded on the Anchor app. So if you're looking to start a podcast of your own, try Anchor. It's great, from a professional podcaster all the way down to a newbie. Until next week, hey, did you ever see that movie?